All right, welcome back to another episode of Realty Resilience. I'm your host, Dave Nations, and I'm excited about today's episode. I've got a wonderful agent, Matt Kammeier, here with us, and him and I've known Matt for a while, and but I've never really got to meet Matt until earlier this year. And him and I had lunch together, and I learned a ton about him personally and his business, and as I told him, I feel like he is a perfect description of our podcast, Realty Resilience, and the things that he's gone through. So I'm really excited to interview Matt today and have him share his story. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm energized and really just excited to dive in and give the people what they want.
Awesome. I love that. Let's jump in then. So first of all, first question, what were you doing before you got into real estate?
Man, I got into real estate really young. Uh, I've done pretty much everything under the
You're like
sun. You
four
can,
because you look like you're like 17 now.
yeah. So I'm 34. I just turned 34 in January. I kind of got into the business, right out of high school. So I'll kind of start in high school. I got a work permit at 15, worked at the restaurant, a local restaurant. I was a busboy, kind of worked my way through the restaurant. And I'm like, man, I really love this. Like, what can I turn this into a career? I was then became a manager. I managed three locations. And then I started calculating, like, man, I'm working 80 hours a week. I'm making $10 an hour. Like, there ain't no way I can make a career out of this. Right. So then totally pivoted from the restaurant, restaurant space, and then was really kind of on an exploration, like what do I want to do that I can wake up every single day and just give it 110%. So I tried to sell cars for a little bit, and they didn't like that I was more relational than transactional. They wanted me to just don't let the people leave the lot, don't let the people leave the lot, and I was more of a why don't I just be a resource for them, And so that only lasted about 6 months. And then after that, I tried to sell life insurance. I was working on my Series 6 and Series 7 license. Did some oddballs. I was told that I was overqualified for a landscaping opportunity. I mean, man, I was hunting for anything and everything. Worked at an e-commerce site where I sold automotive products, did demonstrational videos with for bike racks and roof racks and trailer accessories, truck accessories, and I actually enjoyed doing that, and was always coming up with these cool ideas. And it was a family run business, and so they kind of wanted me to stay, below the threshold, so to speak. It was kind of one of those where unless you were had a last name, you couldn't really move up. So I'm like, what the hell am I going to do, And my aunt had some vacation rentals at the Lake of the Ozarks. And I'm like, I'm young, no family, no kids. Why don't I just move to the Lake of the Ozarks? I'll manage all of your vacation rentals. And she's like, all right, cool. So I'm had no experience, but I'm learning all these softwares. I'm doing laundry and flipping bedding. I'm managing bookings, and really kind of started falling in love with the customer experience. Creating relationships with people that came back multiple times throughout the summer. And that is, I think, what clicked is
What
I
year was that?
2013.
So was that essentially were you doing like Airbnb type stuff for
Yeah.
this? Okay, but that's like
Well, actually,
way
VR.
before Airbnb was even a thing.
Well, yeah, VRBO. I didn't even have Airbnb. Whenever we were doing that, so it was specifically like VRBO. I had relationships with like the Ozark Amphitheater where we did some partnership stuff. Yeah, 2000. So I graduated high school in 2010, and then 2013 was when I was doing the vacation rentals at the Ozarks. So I had about um a season and a half, and then she was like, "Hey, thank you for recouping this money that I've lost. Now I'm gonna sell all the properties."
How many were there?
Four.
Okay.
Yeah. So like we had four, and two of the properties were kind of year round also. So they were resort style. They had stuff that you can, that you could do kind of in the colder months. We had like one cabin that people came down and fished a lot at tournaments. Where the water wasn't warm enough to swim, but people were still coming down and doing fishing tournaments and whatnot. So we were about a season and a half through that, and then the rug kind of got pulled out from underneath me, and
Now,
then
were those four deals enough to keep you busy full time? Just with the turnover and all the stuff you had to do. Interesting.
yeah, well, the
Okay,
other
cool.
thing too is like, I was also living at the Lake of the Ozarks as a 21-year-old,
There's
and
some fun hat in there as well. Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, and I one of the things that kind of kept me the most busy was, she wasn't local, and so there was so much deferred maintenance at a lot of these units that that's really what kept me busy. So there would be times where I'd be doing landscaping, and or whatever else, and like they'd be down at the water. I'm like, hey, I'm here to tighten up some landscaping or whatever else. Like I was still kind of like an on-site manager, so to speak, and and that's a lot of times what kept me busy. But it also, like, I learned because I had no experience in construction or fixing water heaters or anything like that, and I had to YouTube and kind of learn the ropes the hard way. But yeah, the deferred maintenance is really what kept me busy from all of the previous years that she tried to do it remotely.
So you got a taste of real estate doing some vacation rentals in the Ozarks in 2013. Got to do that for a year and a half. She decides to sell. You're not licensed yet, so I assume somebody else gets to sell these
Yeah,
off. And
yeah.
now what?
So I was dating a girl at the time that went to Mizzou, and she had a contact who was a licensed agent. So I met with her, and she's like, I want to introduce you to somebody. And this was like like the and so maybe 2012 is kind of when I first started on the at the Lake of the Ozarks, because 2014, end of 2013, beginning of 2014, is when she introduced me to a gentleman who was starting a property management company. And so then I kind of transitioned from, short terms to long terms. And we started with about 30 properties, and again, really had no experience. So I was out there finding, new clients that had rental portfolios. I was meeting with people from, Colorado or Canada that would come in on the weekend and tour, properties and whatnot. And then I was there to, do the property management agreement, run the rehab, do all the leasing,
Is
manage
this
all the
still in the Lake of
money.
the Ozarks
No, this
down
is
there?
in St. Louis.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, yeah, this is in St. Louis. So, did that for about a year or so. Learned accounting as best as I could. Man, I was trying. I wore so many hats, and I was even painting at times, doing occupancy, repairs and stuff. And
Where's the other guy? What you're doing
that was
everything.
that was me. That was me. Towards the end, I was starting to create relation. It was hard to kind of manage everything because what I was saying yes to, I was saying no to everything else, or what I was saying no to, I was, and so it's like I learned, I learned kind of like early on, okay, I can't do it all. So I need to start creating relationships with these vendors and contractors and people to help me out during all these turns and evictions and whatever else. And I mean, being over a year, it was relatively short lived because I started creating these relationships with these tenants, and and I felt that they were being underserved, and I felt that I should be serving the tenant more than the actual owner, you know? And so, long story short, we ended up merging with another large property management company in the area. And I was not a part of that merger. I was like, look, I just feel like this is not who I am. And I feel like I'm representing the wrong side of the transaction here. And then that was when I got my real estate license, the beginning of 2015.
Got it. So you, I guess, enjoyed real estate enough It was just that the property management maybe took a toll on you from
Yeah.
just the way it was being run and how you were running it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then, so what made you decide to go get your real estate license as opposed to maybe starting your own property management or, or investing?
Yeah.
How did you decide
Yeah.
that
I
path?
think, I loved the idea of the acquisition, right? Like signing a signing a new landlord, or signing a new portfolio. But I loved the relationships with the tenants so much more. That was the investors are all numbers. There's like zero emotion on the investor side of things. And I feel like that is where my heart is in people, not in numbers, is in people. And so I was like, well, why don't I just take this love for people and real estate, get my real estate license, and transition to the retail side of things?
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So, did you do your real estate license online or did you go in person or just
Nope.
curious?
So I went back to I went back to that e-commerce site. I took a week's paid vacation. I did the in-person class, took my 48 hour the following Monday, drove to Jeff City to get my license, and then came back and joined the brokerage, and then stumbled upon a small residential team. I started as a transaction coordinator, actually.
So did you start with KW? I know we're both at
Yeah,
Keller Williams now. Did you start
yeah.
start there from day one?
No, I'm sorry. Actually, no, I didn't. So when I got my license, I started at another brokerage in St. Louis,
Like an
um,
indie or another big firm?
another big firm. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And it kind of just wasn't wasn't it. Very stale, very very quiet, low energy office. And then that is kind of what kind of brought me to KW.
So you're a people person, is what you just said. What when
I
you
like to
say,
think I am.
and I'm not saying you're not. I'm
No,
just
no, no,
saying.
no.
So as a people person, you decide to get your real estate license. Getting into the business and the residential real estate side, what were your hopes and dreams that you're like, oh my God, I'm getting my license because this is what it's going to be like. This is what I hope to have happen because I was a team leader for 3 years for Keller Williams and ran the office and got to meet with a lot of people. So I always got to hear what people loved and why they were getting into the business, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just curious. You'd gotten a taste of it through the vacation rental and the property management and all that. And I think you realized you really like working with people. But again, like jumping into this, what were you like? I'm going to get my license because this is what it's going to do for me in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah, I think, I was still so young. I didn't really know. But the one thing that I knew was a fit for me is throughout my whole life, somebody has always dictated what I was paid. Somebody always said I was underqualified, I was uneducated, dropped out of college 4 different times, this, like, there was always an excuse where people said that this wasn't a fit or my ideas weren't valuable or whatever it may be. They never cared about my character, my work ethic, my determination, right? Like I was in charge. And so that is actually what, it was. I didn't really come to real estate from an income perspective. I didn't come to real estate for a flexibility, perspective. I just came into real estate because it allowed me to do whatever I wanted to do. And I was paid with what I put into it. And that
Nobody was
that I
going to tell
think,
you couldn't do it.
yeah, there's nobody to tell me no. And it was 100% up to me. If I sank, it was because of me. If I flourished, it was because of me. And I think that is what attracted me the most to the industry.
Cool. So you joined a team as a transaction coordinator.
Yes, joined a team as a transaction coordinator, worked the transaction role, and then kind of just built that role, so to speak. I
What made you
stepped
take
out of.
that role versus coming in as just a realtor and trying to find clients and sell? Because again, you being such a people person, I'm surprised you wouldn't want to just jump in and be like, oh, let's go find the deal. Let's go. I like
Yeah,
the hunt. I like to close the client, that kind of thing. Was it the safety of like I can get in and I get a paycheck kind of thing? Or just curious the
it
thinking you
it
had?
was it was an opportunity for me to understand all the moving pieces. When I started at the restaurant, as a busboy, worked all the way up as a manager, I knew all of the different components.
Love it.
I knew back of house and front of house. I knew inventory. I knew the whole thing. And I think that was like, look, man, I'm gonna learn this. I'm gonna learn it quick, and then I'm gonna keep growing. And that's
Got it.
kind of what I did. Is I built this role, created this role. I stepped out of the position, replaced myself. I moved into the listing manager role, created that role, all the systems. I stepped out of that role, replaced myself. Then I kind of started an ISA department within the team, built that role, built those systems, and then kind of stepped out and was director of ops. So I got to a point where I was like, and all while I was still learning the agent side, I was referring deals to the team. I was helping show property, showing up to listing presentations, buyer presentations. Like I was understanding every single component of the process, which allowed me to help manage the team a little bit better.
I love it. So you have a full picture of how it all
Yeah.
works, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's people who jump in and then just sell and do their own thing and kind of figure it out along the way, like on each deal. But you really, I guess, dissected each of the parts and really be
Yeah.
able to understand it from an operations side. So it probably creates a very good, very strong foundation to become a sales side because you understand the back of house and the
Yes.
foundation so much stronger than somebody who brand new plugs in and joins a team. They have all that support and leverage, which is great, but they don't necessarily understand it the way you
Yeah.
do. Interesting.
Yeah.
So how
And
do you feel like that sets you up next?
well, it set me up next because it while I was doing all of that, I was still actively, lead generating. I would work my 8 to 4, and then I'd be at the office from 4 to 7, lead generating or posting on social media, touching base with clients, doing an agent thing. I remember I was referring deals to the team, and then one year I referred 33 deals to the team, and I was doing math, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm missing out on all kinds of money. So that was when it's like, well, hey, I've done every position pretty much possible from the office administration role, and I've referred a consistent amount of business. I have somewhat of a reputation and an image. Now I feel like I'm good to jump ship and start my own team.
Got it. I'm surprised. I was actually thinking you were going to say then you slid over to the sales side and then started selling with the team and did that since you have done all these other roles.
Well, I think that was a thought process, right? But all of my deals were 100% sphere of influence, right? So it I already knew how to run the transactions. I already knew how to manage the listings, right? And then all of the leads that I was getting were, from my own sphere of influence. So in reality, at that particular time, that team couldn't offer me anything because I was it, right?
So when you decided to step out and go on your own, what was the vision of what you wanted to build? Did you have an idea? Was it
I
going to be a
didn't.
team? Was it going to be just you? What did you think when you're like, cool, I got this figured out?
Had no clue. Had
Okay.
no clue. It more or less was just the starting point. I also started my own team like right at the start of COVID, or not my own team, but I also left kind of right at the start of COVID. So I kind of just didn't know. All I knew is that okay, COVID's happening. I'm by myself. I've never been 100% commission before. Head down, go. you know and that's over the course of 3 years. That's what I did. I was doing about 60 units by myself, managing my own transactions, doing my own listings. I was doing everything. I
You're
had
doing all the
zero
paperwork.
leverage.
You were it all. You were the TC, the listing manager, the director of ops, the ISA, and the realtor.
Yes, I had zero leverage. Then that's when I started thinking differently. Like, okay, this is, I'm going to get married now. I'm going to have kids now. We're going to be a happily married person while doing everything that I'm doing at the moment.
And if you're doing 60 deals a year, and you're 100% solo, and you're doing it all, right? Everything. How many hours ballpark a week were you think you were working then?
Oh, man, probably like 80. 80, 90 hours a week.
I'm just curious because you said this earlier when you started in working, right? And you were in the restaurant business, you were making $10 an hour. You ever calculate out your hourly rate when you were doing that and the amount of money you were probably making?
Yeah. Yeah.
How much of a raise did you give yourself?
Quite a bit, actually, quite a bit. Now, it
I
could be
wanted I wanted to
better.
highlight that though real quick because you got it. The reason you said you got into real estate was because people kept telling you you're underqualified and all of this stuff, and you said I can do what I want to do, and it's on me, and I'm betting on myself, right? And I think that that's something that people don't put as much stock in as they should when they're getting into real estate, and that the fact that you're truly betting on yourself. And that is if it works, it's because of you. If it doesn't work, it's because of you. Either
Hmm.
way, it's because of you. And it's not because of the market. It's not because I had a bad CRM. It's not any of that stuff. It's what you're willing to do it. And you went from a $10 an hour job years ago to probably a few $100 an hour, in
Hmm.
what you were making and what you were doing. And you were able to make your own path and make that happen despite all the other people telling you what you could or couldn't do. And just like you said, I love that other part was I put my head down and I just went to work and I got it done. You didn't work. I mean, especially doing that solo through when COVID happened. I can't imagine because now you're on your own island. Everyone was on their own island. So not only did you put yourself on that from just leaving the team, but then the world became that too.
Hmm.
And, it could have been very easy to go like, this ain't gonna work. But
Yeah.
instead, you went all in, and
Hmm.
so I applaud you. I mean, that's awesome. Good for you.
Thank
So
you.
that first year solo, you did 60 something deals.
First year solo, I did 48,
Okay.
and then 60, and then 62.
Which is great because there was a moment during 2020 that like everything was shut down, so we couldn't do anything for a minute. But you still got 48 transactions knocked out, and as competitive as the market was over those couple of years, I mean, you must have written hundreds of offers that
Yeah.
didn't even get put together,
Yeah.
right?
And that was also in the middle of a house fire.
Yeah. So yeah, I know that you've had some personal challenges along the way. So what year was the house fire?
2020.
So also during COVID. So you jump
Yeah.
out, you're on your own, COVID's happening, and you're trying to sell and figure all this out and do it all on your own, and then your house catches fire. How bad was the house fire? Was it like you had to move out and go somewhere else, or I mean, I
Yeah.
guess I've never had house fire, so I guess even if
Yeah.
it
Yeah. I was completely displaced for about 14 months. So, well, I went to my parents for 3 days to kind of figure out what the heck was next and how this whole process worked. Right. And we went to short term housing is so expensive. Like, because it's furnished, they're providing you dishes and furniture and bedding
does
and
insurance cover all that though, or no?
yes, but so in your insurance policy, there's something that's called like loss of use or displacement coverage, which, I mean, nobody really kind of explains really what that is. They just like, hey, here's your policy, here's what you're covered and this and that. But like, okay, let's just say that you have, $20,000 of displacement coverage. Okay, well, that may be a year's worth of rental from a traditional rental market. But when you're talking furnished, I mean, it's 3 to 4 grand a month. So like we didn't have much money left, after so long story short, we didn't do any um furnished housing. I found a place in St. Charles, one studio, 400 and something square feet, put a mattress on the floor and had a card table, went to Goodwill and got
Are
pots
you
and
married at this
pans.
point, or are you still on your own?
So I'm still living with my girlfriend at the time.
Okay, but the two
And
of you in a 400 square foot house with a mattress on the floor. Just wanted to get a
yep,
visual.
yeah. And she was in nursing school while this was all going on. And then we did short term housing there. And then we left and did another short term housing because, like, the, of course, if you go month to month, it's also more expensive. So we were trying to get the better rates from a 3 month or a 6 month, kind of short term because our loss of use was out of money. So like I'm paying my mortgage and I'm paying, the rent out of pocket.
Are you
Yeah,
rebuilding your house as well, or was it salvageable or not?
yeah,
Or
yeah, salvageable. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. But like, insurance is just such a scam. Like the neighbor is what caused our house fire, and we both had the same insurance company, and they still went to litigation. So like it was just the dumbest thing. So people were fighting who's going to pay for what, of course, right? Just like any, insurance company would. So yeah, we moved like three different times during the course of that 12 to 14 months. And it ended up working out because I turned that house into a rental because I was already out, and then I bought a new one. So it worked out, from a portfolio standpoint.
It's wonderful. A true realtor just thinking like, all right, well, actually, how do I turn this into a
Yes.
deal?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you moved three different times. Also had to deal with rebuilding your house and insurance and all the things. How do you still stay on track and still close 48 deals? I mean, there are people that have zero distractions that won't do 30 to 40 to 50 transactions, and yet you had all of that going on. And still, how do you keep it together? Honestly,
Yeah.
and then the
Yeah. I
bouncing
mean,
around and knowing like, okay, this is people want to create habits, right, and rhythms. Like you
yeah.
have none because you're all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. To be honest with you, man, there was a lot of days in my office where like I just cried and just like, how am I able to just carry all of this? Like not to get spiritual, but I'm like, Lord, we just, why me? And the one thing that I heard was because you can. And it kind of gave me the analogy that like when you blow up a balloon and the balloon is stretched, okay? Once the balloon deflates, it can never go back to its original state. It's already been stretched and has maximized its capacity. So while I'm going through this, I'm like, look, I started changing the way that I was looking at the situation, and like, look at all of this that I can manage. Look at all this opportunity and experience that I have to manage all of this crap that's going on in my life. And how can I take that and move it into a new place or a new area of my life and business? So, to be honest with you, I had no structure. I had no plan other than head down and just do it.
Are you still lead generating and trying to find business, or because you've already sort of been in this for a while, with the other team and all that, do you have a decent amount of this like showing up in your work? And again, the rates are
Yeah.
super low at this point too, so everybody
Yeah.
can buy and sell, and
Yeah.
everyone's making money.
Yeah.
And I'm only asking that because it can certainly help, right, when the phone is ringing, as opposed to like I got to call and just keep crushing the phones to
Yeah.
to do the business here.
Yeah. Like,
What does
to
that
be
look like?
honest with you, I've never really paid for leads. I've always been a, reputation, social media, just telling my story, who I am, connecting with people on a personal level. And on the real estate side, people like to work with people that they know and like and trust. And my job is to relate to them, make them feel comfortable, show them the good and the bad, and there's a level of trust there. So a lot of times the business is coming to me, or it's a referral, which I'm very blessed and very thankful for that. That setup.
Wonderful. 14 months later, you get your house back, although you don't move into it, but you get it back. You've got a new house, so a little bit more stability there. And now you're in basically year two of on your own. What happens next?
Then I get COVID, December of 2021, and I'm hospitalized for 41 days. My oxygen was at about 70%. I had three pulmonary embolisms in my lungs. I was on blood thinners. They thought they were going to have to put me on a ventilator, and thankfully pulled out of that. Um, and was on a 6 month recovery with pulmonary rehab. I was showing property and on going on listing appointments with a portable oxygen tank, and had the thing around my nose, and that was a hard, my I think the hardest part of that recovery was my my ability. and endurance had just went to the dirt. I didn't, because when you're on low oxygen, you're fatigued, you're tired, you don't have as much energy, and so it was difficult for me to, you know, at least manage that production because all I wanted to do was nap, you know. And I mean, still, so yeah. January 28th, I missed Christmas, I missed New Year's, I missed my birthday. Yeah, and then that 6 month recovery.
You did 60 deals that year, right?
I
Didn't you?
did, I
Yeah.
did.
So, but during the 41 days that you're in the hospital, tell me you weren't still doing deals while you were in the
I, I
hospital.
was I was doing deals. I had a very good team of people that were helping me out. My sister had actually was at another team, and she was there to help. And the people at people at my office were here to help. And yeah, the team around me, I couldn't have done it without them.
So you still were closing deals. You weren't necessarily calling, negotiating. Everybody else was really handling it, but it was happening on your behalf.
Yeah, yeah.
It pays to have some really good people in your world.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And that's what slowly transitioned me into I can't do this by myself, and that's when, I ended up bringing on my sister, and
I think
she
she earned
was,
it at that point, right?
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was my basically, full-time admin, office manager, showing assistant, transaction man. I mean, just, took my dog to the vet. I mean, everything that I could pawn off, I did.
Can I
She
ask, was she is a salaried person or
Yes.
1099? And I'm asking you more for the business side for us to
Yeah.
understand like how you structure that.
Yeah, she was 1099. She was salaried, but I also had a really nice bonus structure for her also. And she could bring deals to the team. I bonused her that way because she was 1099.
I
So
mean
she
W
I
two. So she on salary. She's W two. You mean?
well, no, 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 she was 1099.
So there was no salary.
Yeah, so she was 1099. She had a consistent base that I paid her.
Got
And
it.
then, she was incentivized, I mean, she was showing property for me. She was dropping off, I paid her, to do the transaction management. And then any other I'm like, hey, this is on you. Like, what do you want to do? Because I can throw anything and everything at you. And she just was like, give it to me all, coach, and took it and ran with it.
Cool. So then now the two of you partner up and start working together. And now that's how you end up getting 60 deals done and you get out of the hospital. Luckily, you recovered. It's 6 month recovery time frame.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say that. I don't know. How do you say it's a good year? I mean, it sounds like a good year, but it sounds like a tough
Yeah.
year. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good year
Yeah.
from a sales standpoint, but personally, you're going through a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, man, every year has had something, like 2022 was, I guess, kind of quiet. 23, my firstborn child was born 2 months premature, was in the NICU. We were in and out of the hospital. That was probably like one of the hardest 12 months of my entire life. Acid reflux, colicky, milk allergy, you know, uh, just I mean, we had so many hospital visits. 2023 was a hard year. That was when I first had the first kind of hit in my production. Came out of that, and then 2024 sprung back up. I think 80, 82 units. 2024,
Well, what'd you do in 23? You said it went down.
yeah, 47.
So you were in the 60s and down to 47, and then the next year you did 80. You doubled. Did you add
Yeah,
anybody on your team, or was it still you and
no,
your sister?
just me and my sister.
Did you add any sources? What'd you do differently? I mean, to go from 48 to 84 in 1 year, and interesting, 23, 24, the rates didn't come down. The rates stagnant, so I can't say it was
Yeah,
that, right? What would you do differently?
I didn't do anything differently. I think that in 2023, I just didn't have time. It was hard to get a hold of me, or I would get back to people and they would have already made it, went with somebody else. And 2024, I just had time. But the cool thing about real estate, in my opinion, especially when you're using social media, is people are always watching you. So they saw everything that I went through in 2023, how I responded, how I reacted, my mentality about, this, extremely unfortunate circumstance, and people just genuinely created a relationship with me, and I try every opportunity to create a relationship with somebody else too, genuinely. Like I care more about a relationship with you, really, truly, than I do a paycheck, right? The paycheck
I
is
think
just
that's the byproduct.
the
I mean,
byproduct. Yeah, like I genuinely care so much about you and your needs and your family and what you need. The real estate is just cause and effect, and I think that people went along that journey with me in 2023, and I came out in 2024 energized and just ready to help as many people as I could, and I had the time to do it.
what an interesting take. Obviously, family first, and I firmly believe that. But I think at the same time, as a realtor that works 100% for yourself, right? If you don't have any deals, you're not making any money. There's a huge stress level that has to be weighing on you while you're dealing with all the personal stuff that you have going on. And even just like you mentioned it, right? People go like, hey, I need to buy a house and you can't help me find, I got to go somewhere else, and you lose them. Like that weighs on you, and that's added stress on you. And just the concern of like, man, the more I unplug from this because I have to, and this is what's the right thing to do, it's going to be harder for me to get back in the game. And, and instead you went all in and doubled down the next year
I
and
do,
proved
and
that
I
that
I
is not
do
the truth.
I
And by the way, I just
do.
want to say, like, the social media, whereas so many people post all the great things and I did all these deals and I'm doing all this stuff, you're just sharing life. And I think that approach is what kept people engaged with you and really
Yeah.
helped kind of things going. Whereas
Yes.
Matt disappeared, right? I've never heard from him. I don't
Yeah.
know what he's doing. 2023, he decided to stop selling real estate, never talked to him again. That wasn't true. So it's an interesting way to kind of bring the two together in a way that really showed how authentic and genuine you are.
Well, and here's one thing too, with this audience, your audience being real estate agents, right? Like my mentality is, even though it was unfortunate that I didn't have the opportunity to meet or help that particular person, I know statistically that that person has a large chance of not using that real estate agent again when they have to sell, right? And so I never took that offensively. And so I still kept in touch. I still, like communicated and talked on social media. I still checked in with them, and if they used me, great. If not, I still just genuinely care. But here's the thing is that there have been dozens of times where I missed an opportunity to help somebody, but they called me the second time. They called me to list, or hey, you know, we didn't get to use you for our first house, but we'd like to use you for this time around. Or hey, our families, like I never had the mentality that like you didn't use me, so like, forget you. Like I don't take offense to that. You felt you needed to make that decision based off of where you were at that particular time. You felt that I wasn't the right fit. That's fine. I can't get mad at that.
But that's the power of your relationships and your passion behind having such strong relationships, I think, and
Yes.
that people can make the choices that they make and still feel comfortable coming back to you later, even if they chose to go a different
Yeah.
direction before. And it's a great mindset.
Yes. Yeah. And people just appreciate that, like, and even when people have family members, like I never want to try to divide a family when they have somebody who's in real estate, but I will always talk with you. Look, I want you to make the best decision, and if you feel like your family member is it, I respect that, and people like, sure, do I probably lose business? Sure. Could I probably close a little bit harder? Sure. But I just don't care because it'll always come back to me in some way, shape, or form.
Well, and they've proven it to be true. Look at your business, right? I mean, it's continued to climb. Went down to 48, but then you went up to 84, and not,
Yeah.
and you continue. You've been in the business consistently now since 2015. I think you said is when you got your license. So, I mean, you're not going anywhere. There's plenty of it.
Yes.
And you got the right mindset. So that's awesome. So 24 had a solid year. What did last year look like for you? And is it still just you and your sister? Have you
Yeah.
added?
Yeah. Still me and my sister. 64, I think, is what we did last year. 66, 64. So that's kind of been like the eye opener, right? That like, okay, we're at capacity, like we need to really start thinking differently, and I would say one of my regrets during this whole, last, you know, I guess 5 years or so, 5, 6 years or so, is that like I was head down for so long. I never took an opportunity to kind of come up for air and be like, do I need to pivot? Do I need to course correct? Right? Like am I really going in the right direction? Right? Because if I maybe would have started looking at things differently, I could have focused more on growing the team and leveraging a little bit more. And last year I could have closed 100, you know? So I think like going going forward, I am working more diligently about looking at things differently, and coming up for air.
So would you say, my question I want to ask is what's next for you, but to follow up my own question is it about really now focusing on building the team because you're coming up for air and establishing, okay, I need to make some changes because I've hit this ceiling?
Yeah. Yeah. So I've made, and people may differ with this opinion, but I feel that I can say this. The main difference between me and a team doing 300 units is bodies. It's people, right? Like one agent can only manage so many people and transactions effectively, right? And
Yeah.
so, the
Sounds like
systems.
about 60 because I think that's what you were doing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, like, the systems may be a little bit different. Their processes may be a little bit different. Their colors and branding and all that. But, like, in reality, the teams that are doing more than me just have more people, right? But the unique thing about it is that I feel that I can teach people how to do more with less and focus more on the personal brand as opposed to, like the Zillows and, a lot of that, like where that's an important factor in the model, right? But I'm trying to build people that want to create their personal brand right within the team. And so I think that going forward, it's, finding the right agents to partner with that, see the value in our culture and how we treat our clients and just and genuinely caring about what we do while also providing the leverage, but I would say like that's really it's next is working on finding more people that want to go into business together.
That's awesome. Very exciting. Well, you've created something pretty amazing, and you run a pretty consistent business, as as we just heard. What before we wrap, what would you say the funniest thing that's ever happened to you in this business has been? Well, I'd say the craziest, but you've already had some pretty crazy stories. I mean, with your house fire, and being
Yeah.
in real estate. But like, I mean, everyone always has a funny story from a showing, or who knows? I don't know. But
Yes, I
what you got for
do.
us?
I don't have the outcome of the story, but I have the story. And so I was scheduled a showing down in Washington, Missouri, a rural area, right? And scheduled a showing. The showing was confirmed. I always like to do a knock, like, hey, it's Matt with Keller Williams, making sure no one got left behind or someone forgot that they confirmed a showing. The TV was on, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that could be a common thing to leave on if you're rushing out the door. TV was on, and we're bring the clients through, and the lady was in the shower. So I'm like, I heard the shower running. I'm like, hello. And you could tell that she was just frantic. I'm like, okay, we're gonna leave and we'll
She
reschedule.
heard you when you walked in and said hello.
Yes, yes. And I was like, you know what? I'm in rural Midwest. There's most likely a few guns in this house, and I'm gonna back away carefully. And we just got in the car and we left.
Now, did you get a phone call from the agent that was like, "What were you doing?" or
Well,
I
I called
apologize?
I called the agent after we had left and was like, "Hey, I just want you to know, here's what happened. You know, it sounded like she was in the shower. We left right away. We locked up. We'll reschedule." And it was an elderly lady that lived alone, and I was like, you know what, I don't want to cause any problems or create any scares.
Did you guys go back to look at it?
No, first impression, the buyers were turned off, and we went a different direction. But yeah, that was probably the funniest slash craziest moment that I've had.
At least she didn't come running out,
Yes, yes. What? Who's in my house? Shotgun or something.
Oh man. Well, thanks for sharing that. And I wish I had more time to keep going with this because I could keep asking you a bajillion more questions. But really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and all the things that you've gone through. And congrats on all your success.
Thank you.
For those that would love to send you referrals or ask more questions, maybe be one of those future partners on your team, how can they find you?
Yeah, yeah. So social media, you can find me at Matt Kammeier, Kammeier Property Group. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Would love to connect with you, and just get to know one another.
Matt, thanks, man. It's been a pleasure, and really
Appreciate the
appreciate
opportunity,
you.
Dave. This was fun.
So, thank you. And for all those of you guys out there listening, thanks for tuning in to another great episode of Realty Resilience, and stay tuned for our next episode. See you guys.